So I'm not reading this from a textbook, and this theory hasn't been tested on monkeys or mice. I'm 6 months off cigarettes, and this is how it happened. So it's no smoking day, apparently, to help try and convince others maybe to quit smoking. And I'm not one of them real anti-smoking people, but I thought, what better way to spend my day than putting a video together sharing the story of how I managed to quit 6 months ago. And if it helps somebody out there who's maybe suffering with anxiety to give it a go, maybe quit, give them the confidence, share my story, then it's worth it. The thought of giving up always used to fill me with anxiety. It was the thought and the fear of those dreaded withdrawal symptoms. So, let me explain. No, I'm not one of these people that count the hours, days, minutes, but it was August 20th, about 8 pm on a Saturday, that I had my last one. And the reason for me giving up smoking wasn't financial. There was no gradual build up to the big day where I had my last cigarette. Mine was different. The reason for me was one of anxiety and panic, or it was related. But that should come as no surprise because this is an anxiety and mental health channel. On that night, on that Saturday, about 15-20 minutes after my last cigarette, I had a vertigo spell from hell. And it was that bad that I took myself to bed and I spent 4 days pretty much still. And to cut a long story short, I was a mess with anxiety. I couldn't move my head. Every time I moved, I was getting extreme dizziness sensations. It was just completely overwhelming. And I don't know whether it was vertigo, whether it was actually anxiety that caused it, or whether it was a virus or whatever, but that's not important. The important bit for me was after 4 days of lying in bed, I realised that I hadn't had a cigarette, and I hadn't really even thought about the need for one. It was a few days after that, about another 3 days, that I was due to go on holiday, but my head, my brain, still felt like it was being whipped around from pillar to post every time I moved. And on the morning that we were supposed to leave for the holiday, I was in a right pickle, in a complete mess. Not only the fear and the weird sensations of the dizziness that I was experiencing, although it was calming down a bit, but I also, on top of that, had the fear of travelling, of being away from home for a week, driving over 150 miles, all the normal stuff that an agoraphobia sufferer would think about. But on top of that, I think I was then beginning to experience the first withdrawals from the cigarettes. So a week without nicotine and all the other crap that they cram into cigarettes was finally starting to take its toll on me. And it was mainly in my head, not in my mind, but actually in my head, with headaches. And my wife had already quit a few months before, and she was using a vape pen with just a low nicotine liquid. But I'd already tried that in the past when I'd thought about quitting smoking, which I'd done many, many times, thought about it. But I used the vape pen, and anxiety decided that that made me feel woozy, dizzy, spaced out, gave me headaches. But this time it felt different because I'd already been off cigarettes for a week at this point, and it was I knew that I could cope without them, but my body was now craving the chemicals. So I had a choice to make. And it's at that point where we have that choice that I imagine that people either make it or they cave into the cravings. And this is where the vape pen came in useful for me. As I was already feeling woozy and dizzy and spaced out because of the previous dizzy sensations, I thought I'd give the vape pen another go. What's the worst that can happen? I was already feeling the physical strains, and I wanted to see if maybe putting this low nicotine liquid into my system would help ease some of those sensations that I was feeling. So I could kind of answer the question, were these withdrawal symptoms or was it just anxiety? And I'm not claiming that the vape pen is a miracle worker, but literally within about an hour of me first using it, we decided, because it was in the balance at that point, we decided that we were going to go on holiday. So whether it was a physical effect or a psychological effect, the bottom line is it had a positive effect, And that's what gave me the confidence, enough confidence in myself to be able to go, at least get out the door and try. So I spent that week on holiday, and there is film footage of this in a previous video, using the vape pen. And it seemed for me to keep the physical withdrawal symptoms at bay, whether it was because of the nicotine in the liquid or whatever. The withdrawals were easing. Now, this video isn't me giving you tips on how to quit. It's not about your motivations for wanting to quit. It's not about me preaching for you to quit. What it's about is my story and me suffering with anxiety and quitting smoking after 20 years. 20 years? Which is crazy when I sit here and think about it. 20 freaking years of smoking. And I'd had that quitting conversation with my wife so many times, like for financial reasons, for health reasons, but for some strange reason there was just nothing that ever really motivated me enough to want to carry on and want to do that. And I honestly think if I hadn't have had that crazy vertigo spell, I would probably still be bloody smoking, which is annoying. So I'm no superhero here. There's no major success story about willpower and that. I had a major contributing factor to that first week, and I think that would probably be the hardest. And for the next few weeks after that, I didn't really think about cigarettes that often. There was a few occasions, I would say, like usually after a meal, that would be the first thing that I'd do. And my routine used to be I'd get up, get dressed, get washed, brush my teeth, go downstairs, whack the kettle on, and go outside for a cigarette while I'm waiting for the kettle to boil. And then it'd be after dinner, after lunch, and always last thing before I went up to bed, I'd go out, stand in the friggin' dark, freezing cold, having a cigarette. Why? I'd say during that first few weeks, the most apparent physical change for me was breathing. And for me, breathing was always a massive factor with my anxiety and my panic. That suffocating feeling, it was always something that would spike in a panic attack or in high anxiety. And stopping smoking seems to have given me a lighter feeling in my lungs, like freer. Like I can take a deep breath, but it also feels a lot clearer. And for as long as I can remember, I've had problems with my sinuses and my airways and just breathing in general. Like I've felt like I've had a constant bloody sinus infection. And I've always put that down to maybe hay fever or allergies, but now I'm honestly not so sure. Obviously I haven't faced hay fever season yet, so I might be completely wrong, but I've just got this feeling that there's more to it than that. My airways have certainly improved. And I've not really noticed any major changes in my appetite, although I'm going to be 100% honest here, because I don't tell porcupines. I have definitely put on between half a stone and a stone in weight in the 6 months, and I know that's probably one thing that puts a lot of people off from quitting smoking. But I'd say a lot of that can now, because I feel healthier, I should be exercising more, but it's just that I still find that problem with the motivation. But I'm working on that, and I will keep you posted. I didn't really notice any changes in taste and smell. I know a lot of people comment on that, but maybe that's just like such a gradual thing, and because I weren't really focusing my attention on it, maybe that's just passed me by. But one thing that I do notice is that I can now smell if somebody's smoking from a freaking mile away. My neighbours, if I go out in the back garden and stand there for a bit, like if I'm out there with a dog, and my neighbour 2-3 doors up are smoking, I can smell it. I get a whiff of it and it's like, ugh. So vape pens. There's been a lot of talk about vape pens and whether they're good for you, whether they're bad for you, and I've made my feelings pretty clear on it before, and there's so many conflicting arguments that you can find on the net if you choose to search for them. Personally, I don't believe they can be as bad as smoking, physically smoking, especially if they're used as an aid to try and reduce or quit nicotine. Then sure, it's got to be worth the investment. So for me, like, using a vape pen has saved me about 70 quid a week, but it's also given my lungs a chance to clear the tar and the other crap that goes into cigarettes. So you can get different strength liquids, that start pretty high if you are a regular smoker, and they taper down to 0 strength. So if you want to ease yourself off, the stuff is there and it will help you through. I think if you can break the habit, then that is more than half the battle of actually withdrawals. I think the habit become, for me personally, more of an issue than actually the feelings. And this isn't an advert for vaping vapors of vapeville.vape. I need to check if they exist, but I don't think they do. But it isn't. It's what I use to get to this 6 month point, and it's made it extremely manageable. I remember asking my GP like years ago whether he thought it was a good idea for me to quit smoking, and he said no at the time, saying that the additional stress would probably not be a good thing for my anxiety. And maybe he was right at that time, but now looking back, I honestly believe like it was one of the best decisions that I made was to not have a cigarette that first day that I was able to. The choice I made in picking up the pen, the vape pen, was the right choice. And I'm not saying that quitting smoking has cured my anxiety, obviously, because you know if you've watched my videos before, but the health benefits aren't made up. So if you're considering quitting smoking, but you're concerned about like the withdrawals and is it going to make your anxiety spike, are you going to feel weird, spaced out, then no more than you normally friggin' would if you suffer with anxiety. That's my experience, first-hand experience, not tested on animals experience. And not only for health reasons, but also financially. And if you can do it without the need for any smoking aids, then go for it. If you need a vape pen, use it. If you want Nicorette friggin' chewing gum, chew it. If you don't need anything at all, brilliant. I'm not here to tell people what to do, I'm just sharing my opinion. I wanted to try and give those who want to quit the info on how I felt in the early stages and up until now. How my body reacted. And obviously you might be different. It might be easier, it might be worse. All I can share is my experience. And obviously I'm not suggesting that you get ill for a week to help you quit smoking. But what I'm suggesting is, regardless of anxiety or panic attacks, quitting smoking will make you feel physically healthier. That's a given. And there might be wobbles. There might be times where you feel intense physical sensations. And it might make you feel like crap at times. But it's definitely worthwhile if you can manage it. Give it a go. Happy No Smoking Day. Vape Nation.